Welcome to the Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, Captain Logan, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good weekend. I know I did. This week is a very special week. We got a new episode of the Sea of Thieves, the official Sea of Thieves podcast. We're going to be talking about what they covered in that episode, as well as how it ties into the story that I wanted to talk about with not only the third adventure, the Shrouded Deep, but also the new pirate legend of the Vale, the Vale of the Ancients voyage that came in with this latest update. We are still a month and a half, I think, out of the last half of season 6. So it's amazing that we have this much content, and I can't wait to find out what we're getting because we're still waiting for that season mystery. Community Day is also coming up. We're going to be covering that as well too. So lots to get into it. So let's do it. But before we get into this episode, I want to take a moment to thank the patrons who went over to patreon.com/Keelhauled podcast to support this podcast and help get me to SOT Fest this summer. I'm looking forward to going to England. It'll be my first trip. And they're the ones that are helping with that. They're the ones that are helping donate to pay for food, to pay for lodging, to pay for the actual flight and stuff. So I want to give a shout out to them because they're the ones that have been supporting me for a long time and making this possible. So thank you to People's Republic, El Cute, Slum, Captain Hasco, Chateau Neuf, Chris, Cloud, Cosmic Johnson, Davram TV, El Jefe Esteban, Fergatron, Trickster, Jabaro5, Kazia the Rogue, Lumpy SRQ, Ocarian Darth, Dub Goose, Evil Morpheus, Xbox Mike 29, Murphy Lives, Mutinous Mikes, Regis Stella, Russ Bell Kid, Norwegian, Skinny Matt, Scum Melt 666, Strange Stan, Tarnished Film, That Kilted Guy, TM Professor, Real Big Tuna, Uriel Canes, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, Super Pack, Music Me, The Lore Chronologist, Deadeye Dre, Ghost Boy 20, Neon, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Straw Hat Connor, Thor Von Blitz, Windsor Chris, and Zam. Wow. Thank you all so much for your support. It means the world to me, and it helps me do things to be able to have experiences that I never could, to make sure that the equipment that I'm using is working. After the trip for London, I'm going to be working on saving up enough money for a new rig, so that way I can actually be able to stream more often instead of the really bad settings that I have going on right now. And it means the world to me. So thank you all so much for your support. It really does help out. First up on today's docket, let's talk about the third adventure, the Shrouded Deep. I've discussed this a little bit with some folks already on the episode, but I wanted to kind of sit down and take stock of how it came out, how I feel about it, and just kind of overall, is this something that will really kind of impact the way that Sea of Thieves is kind of done in the future? And I think it will, because I think they are currently working on how they want to try and bring some of the past events, some of the events that we've had in the past, kind of forward into the future to give folks that weren't there an opportunity to kind of play around and see what this was like. But as always, in the Sea of Thieves official podcast, and I'm going to be referencing that this week, because what they did is they talked about the Shrouded Deep adventure, as well as the pirate legend Vale Voyage, and also just kind of a little bit of things here and there to kind of give an idea of what's been going on in the Sea of the Sea of Thieves and the Sea of the Damned. They kind of break down some of the stories. So I figured before I get into the Shrouded Deep too much, let's catch folks up with the lore as far as what's been going on with season 6. Believe it or not, season 6 is kind of the biggest lore dump that we've had since A Pirate's Life, in my opinion. We had A Pirate's Life, and that really opened up the Sirens and the Sunken Kingdom to us, and gave us a lot to think about as far as some of the different things that are going on below the actual surface. As we kind of stay on top of the surface of the water here, we're starting to get more and more idea about what's going on between the Sea of the Damned and the Sea of Thieves. This is really interesting in regards to Flameheart, someone who's been around for quite a while. And as we get into the Sea of Thieves episode, the official podcast, they kind of go in and break down what's been going on. And a lot of it kind of pertains to Flameheart and his desire to control the Sea of Thieves. This is something that I really enjoyed. because I didn't realize, and thanks to the podcast, I don't remember hearing this, but apparently there's a point where you can actually hear Flameheart leaving in the first cinematic trailer that came out for the first adventure. Mike Chapman might have been having a little bit of a go at us on that, but it was nice to kind of see them. The usual, actually, there were some new faces now that I mentioned it on the podcast, and it was nice to kind of see some of the actual Sea of Thieves podcast, or the community managers, as well as a couple of the actual designers like Steve Dillon, Mike Chapman. But we had Joe or Joe Tro, you may know her on the actual like Twitter, if you haven't seen that, or if you've been in the Discord at all, you definitely know like who Joe is. It was nice to kind of see her there, as well as James Bowden. I actually don't know how you actually pronounce your Twitter handle, so I'll refrain from making a fool of myself. But they were in the episode this week, and the first kind of thing that they did was John actually kind of asked Mike to kind of break down what is going on in the Sea of Thieves for folks that may not be keeping up with the lore. We've had a few adventures at this point, as well as tying in some outside content, just kind of let everyone know what's been going on. And it's kind of nice to have it from the horse's mouth, per se, to kind of break down what's been going on. So I'll just kind of recap that real quick. Flameheart has found out that there is a way, thanks to the castaway coming from A Pirate's Life, to travel between the Sea of Thieves and the Sea of the Damned via the portals. Although Castaway is, effectively a sea god, there are other ways to actually get to the Sea of Thieves from the Sea of the Damned in the form of the Vale of Ancients, which we found out is actually in the belly of the Shrouded Ghost, which kind of explains why that was the case, as far as it being something that was really, really rare. Again, I still really love that. But now with Flameheart kind of tasking the Reapers to do the bidding of his will, essentially, they are out seeking this Vale of Ancients mask. But as we found out with the Shroud Breaker, another ancient relic that was used to pierce the veil of the shroud, the Vale of Ancients, which in fact kind of pierces the veil of the barrier between the Sea of the Damned and the Sea of Thieves, if I'm keeping that straight, is not always in one piece. We found out that there are veil stones, and that these stones have been buried and kept secret for a while from the ancients. The ancients were smart enough to kind of keep this stuff kept away, so that not all of it was one piece. So if someone found the mask, they wouldn't be able to just control the passageway between the Sea of the Damned and the Sea of Thieves, So it's up to us to not only find the Veil of Ancients, but also to recover the Veil Stones. And that's kind of where the Sea of Thieves adventure, the Shrouded Deep, Adventure 3 of Season 6, is coming into play, as well as the latest Pirate Legend Voyage, the Veil of, or the Voyage of Veils, or no, the Vale Voyage. I'm just going to call it the Vale Voyage. I can't actually remember what it's called now that I think about it. I've grabbed it a bunch of times, and it's weird that you can only have one, that we talked about in last episode. But it was really kind of cool to see that the thing that I had kind of wanted for a while is kind of this pirate lord with the Athena's fortune versus Flameheart in the Reaper's Bones. Originally, the Reaper's Bones was founded by Wanda the Warsmith, who was doing so for the sake of Flameheart. And after, him kind of not really loving her the way that she loved him, she got kind of upset with that and decided to join the Brethren Court, which is now, or the Dark Brethren Court, I should say, not the Brethren Court, but the Dark Brethren Court, which is now, thanks to the podcast we found out, going to be kind of in the shadows for a while. So the questions that I've had regarding where's Wanda, where's Duke, where's Stitcher Jim, what's going on with the Gold Hoarder, is he actually gone forever, or is he going to come back the way the Ramsey has always said? All of that is going to have to wait till the next year, probably, which is it kind of takes care of the thing that I wanted, which was a little more closure with some of the story arcs that we've had. We've had Flameheart, we've had Seabound Soul, we've had Heart of Fire for a couple of years now. And it's been since then that we've kind of wanted to have some sort of resolution, but you can't really have a resolution to this without introducing some new characters along the way that will help kind of build up the next character arc, the next story that they want to tell. And now that we have kind of that in place, both with the Dark Brethren Court and Wanda, Duke, and Stitcher Jim, but we also have the opportunity in the future for a Pirate's Life with Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones to kind of find out what's going on with there, and potentially Captain Hook, or as I call him Captain Hook in the game. He's just referred to as Captain. And outside of the little teases that I'd posted in a video on my YouTube, there's not much proof to say that it is in fact Captain Hook, but I'm still kind of hoping that it is, just because it feels like it would be such a cool kind of bit of my history with Disney kind of being brought more into Sea of Thieves, which I absolutely love. So as we're kind of getting into this arms race between the Athena's Fortune crew of Pirate Legends and Flameheart's Reaper's Bones, it'll be interesting to find out if we start to get a little more of that agency, the thing that they had talked about. We haven't seen any of that yet, and they stated that they wanted to have Pirate Legends be the ones who are going to be making these big decisions. What's going to happen with Golden Sands Outpost? How are we going to find this war between the Reaper's Bones and Athena's Fortune? How is the Sea Dogs going to play into this? And are they already playing a part into this? Or is there just some things that went wrong during the actual making of some of the content that's come to the game? And maybe some oversights as far as the quality assurance to make sure that things that we've used in the past aren't being used to insinuate connections to the future? Or are those actually breadcrumb trails that are being left there for us to find so that we can help kind of understand what's going to happen in the future? And of course, I'm referencing the Triumphant Sea Dog logo that was found on a banner during one of the emplacements at the actual end of the Vale Voyage, which we found out thanks to the books that came with the Vale Voyage, that these encampments, these forts, are something that were brought into the world of Sea of Thieves from the Sea of the Damned, obviously, by Flameheart. He had managed to weaken the Veil enough to bring this fort in here, where they were keeping one of the 3 Veil stones that you're going to need to collect to be able to empower the Veil Mask, which is going to allow you to travel between the worlds of the Sea of the Damned and the Sea of the Thieves, or Sea of Thieves, without the help of the Castaway or Teodoma. I'm really just in love with all of this going on. I really am. I know that I had talked a lot last week's episode about my concerns as far as tying narrative to the voyages that are going to be on repeat. And I still have those concerns. They are just concerns. I'm not saying that the voyage itself is bad. I actually think that the voyage is probably one of the best voyages that they've ever made, because I think it does do a great job of taking narrative and tying it to the thing that you're going to be doing. When originally the voyages were just an enticement to get you out into the world to do something, as opposed to just sailing around without any kind of actual a purpose. If you think about like when pirates were in Nassau back in the day, they had stories or information that was given to them that there were going to be cargo ships that they could go and actually hijack goods from. That information was passed via person to person. You paid for that knowledge for the most part. And that's kind of what the trade companies are representing in the Sea of Thieves. But there is a bit of a interesting twist to that, because the information that we're getting is actually coming from the skulls from the Order of Souls, that is then turned into maps and riddles that are then sold to the gold hoarders. And then the gold hoarders then give us a small cut of the actual value of that treasure before sending it off to the gold hoarders. How it gets from the gold hoarders back out into the world is a conundrum, and it really does kind of come down to, I think you just have to assume that there's just a bunch of treasure that is constantly buried out there, whereas the Merchant Alliance are just kind of ferrying goods to and from the Sea of Thieves to the outside world, so that they can kind of make a profit off of that, in the way that a East India Trading Company, or the oh gosh, what is the company called? I'm blanking. It's not it's the version of the Sea of Thieves East India Trading Company that I'm blanking on. But I'm still waiting for those guys to actually make an appearance too. I would still love to have them. The comics were great, to be able to kind of dive into their history and their pompous attitude towards the world and how they felt like they were the rulers and stuff. But I'm getting away from the actual point of this, which was the Vale Voyage being a great design for us to be able to kind of immerse ourselves in the world, while also rewarding us with gold and treasure that we can then use to kind of level up our reputation, as opposed to just having kind of a bland, an actual bland voyage that is just like, go do a bunch of things, and then once that's done, do it all over again. So as we're kind of moving through some of the history of Sea of Thieves, we kind of move into this weird area where, now that we have kind of established that the Sea of the Damned can now make memories of pirates real, Flameheart, who is stuck in the Sea of the Damned, is now looking for a way to get his soul out of the Sea of the Damned and back into the Sea of Thieves, so that he can actually control the Sea of Thieves, where he believes he is the true pirate king. I like that he has somehow managed to convince the Spanish forts that we have, the sea forts, to act as bastions for the Reapers, to be able to have like holding places and stuff like that, especially when they were working on trying to capture souls to infuse the relics with power, so that they could try and bring Flameheart back from the Sea of the Damned. Obviously, we thwarted that, so we were able to rescue the people from the Golden Sands outpost, and then stop the relics from being empowered, which then stopped Flameheart from being able to come back into the Sea of Thieves after being banished to the Sea of the Damned as a result of him losing his power after our kind of working on killing his fleets and such. So kind of moving from there, I'm trying to think. The weird place that I find myself is where did Belle come in? And what connection does she have with Ramses? There's obviously some history there that we don't know about. And I'm very curious if they have rewritten the backstory to Belle, if they've given her a new life and a new kind of arc that is going to be tied into the Sea of Thieves, much differently than her original intent, but using kind of the base for it. You know, you kind of have a base character sheet when you're creating a D&D character, but you go through enough trouble to kind of build up the back story of that character that no longer is it just the base one that you got out of the pages of the D&D book. It is now your own after making choices and things like that. And I wonder if that's what's happened to Belle here. Very much it feels like she has a lot of purpose, and that she's very powerful, but we don't know where her power comes from. We don't know if it's tied directly to the ferryman, even though she wears kind of that hippocampus necklace, so that it does kind of suggest that her and the ferryman are in league with each other. And I'm very curious where the relationship lies between the ferryman, Belle, Legend of the Deep, and Ramses for the pirate lord. I wonder if Belle is actually going to be the warrior, the female warrior that we've heard about in the tales, thanks to the Sunken Kingdom and the shrines with the different actual books that we found in there. That'd be great to kind of find a little more tie between her and the ancients, because I think that's kind of what the Vale Voyage has alluded to, but I'm already kind of skipping ahead. So with Adventure 2, we rescued the vendors from Golden Sands Outpost, and we stopped Flameheart from being able to be brought back into the Sea of Thieves via the noun, the enchantment. I can't even remember what we call it. I just call it the now. But with the dark relics themselves. And as we kind of move towards Adventure 3, we start to get the Shrouded Deep event. And that's where Belle has recruited Merrick, who she was actually able to summon the wreck of the killer whale into a brand new ship. They went out and they sailed, and I really wish I had gotten a chance to actually see this, but they went out and they sailed and they tried to summon the Shrouded Ghost. It didn't go well at all for them, and as a result, they ended up beached on a bunch of rocks out in the middle of the Sea of Thieves. We happened to come across them to find a table that had a bunch of skeleton, I'm going to try this word, runes. Nope, that was still wrong. Runes. I think it's runes. Oh, I hate this. A bunch of skeleton runes on it, and we find out that we can actually summon the Shrouded Ghost, which is interesting that we have to go all the way to the trouble of the Shrouded Ghost. But I do like they're kind of bringing that into the lore to kind of show that. And they tied the Sea of Thieves shots around sharks and megalodons to kind of give players a reason to actually do that. With actually getting the Shrouded Ghost summoned, one of the things that I loved about this voyage that I didn't anticipate, I didn't know up until the point that I was actually doing it, until it was kind of spoiled for me, was that halfway through the fight, a bunch of Reaper ghost ships managed to pierce through the Vale and actually come into the Sea of Thieves and start attacking us with a flagship. There's actually a captain flagship. Now, we don't know if necessarily this is something that was actually manned by the Servant of Flame. I don't think so. It seems like it was just a bunch of captain ships that Flameheart had sent in to try and intercept the Vale of Ancients while we were attacking the Shrouded Ghost. Perhaps the Shrouded Ghost was in the middle of being attacked when it was in the Sea of the Damned, and when it escaped through the Vale and made it to the Sea of Thieves through the calling, they followed suit, knowing that it was there, or perhaps they were watching us the whole time. It's tough to say. So hot on the heels of Flameheart's ghost ships is actually Sir Arthur Pendragon, who is coming in to help us try and take down the Shrouded Ghost so that we can actually manage to get the Vale to the Pirate Lord for safekeeping. We don't know what the Vale is going to be used for. That's the really interesting thing that I like about this, is that as we have killed the Shrouded Ghost for now, we get the Vale, and as we're holding on to the mask, Pendragon offers or takes it to Ramses, who's awaiting its arrival. And Merrick, I would imagine, goes back to his normal business, helping out with the Hunter's Call and his wife, Sarek. And Belle will probably go off and do her own thing until she's needed again. And we kind of have this little bit of a respite. And that's where we get into the pirate legend Vale Voyage. So before I dive into that, I kind of want to give my overall thoughts about the first three adventures and how I feel about them. With Adventure 1, that was very much a kicking off joint of what these are going to be. It was the first stab at giving us adventure that was, or giving us narrative through the adventure, where we were going to have to go out and do stuff that felt very reminiscent of the Reaper's voyages that we had back in 2019, where Rare had designed voyages that were kind of designed around creating confrontation, or at least player engagement with the world through PvE, which then created PvP. I don't know if that was necessarily the original intent. In the podcast, they said that they weren't too keen on how some of those interactions went. But I mean, that is Sea of Thieves. You can never tell who you're going to come across or what their intentions are going to be. So you always want to be kind of on the cautious side of it. So with the first adventure, I liked that they kind of gave some story to it. I don't know that I necessarily like the way the story's going, but that's fine. They have a story. They're telling it. Not everyone's going to enjoy it, because I've always felt like the Servant of Flame has always felt a little kind of weak as a character, and not really someone that I built up in my mind as Flameheart Jr., even though it kind of matches his persona. He's always been kind of weak, but in this case, he's always propping himself up as someone who's been very, very proud of his father's heritage. And I don't know. I'm still kind of iffy on that as far as the Servant of Flame being Flameheart Jr. and my feelings about how I like that. I'm not sure that I really like it, but I'll continue to watch this story progress to see if I'm won over. Not that they have to, but just for my own mindset, I guess, in this case. And as we get into Adventure 2, I think Adventure 2 is really where the whole game just kind of changed for me. We got sea forts, and we had sea forts for a while where they were on their own. And if you went over to them and you killed all of the enemies in there, the Spanish ghost officers, or phantoms, and you looted the treasure, it was a quick 30-minute in and out adventure. It didn't require a voyage, and you could do it on a lunch break and have a really fun time. You get that quick little fix, which is something that I think Arena served when Arena wait times were a lot shorter. And back when Arena was a different mode, because I never liked the new mode. Not that you guys haven't heard me talk about this in the past. And I think Adventure 2 did a great job when it introduced more narrative using the sea forts, where we had a really cool cinematic that kind of dove into some of the happenings on with the actual outpost vendors. We found out that they'd been captured. I think the timing was a little off on this, which was kind of a bummer, because I think if we had been able to do the actual adventure when sea forts came out, it would have kind of left a better taste in my mouth than when we did get the adventure and we had to go and actually kind of rescue the different people from there, but the people were based on RNG. So I really liked that it included the new content. It did a great job of focusing in on saying, like, these are the sea forts. You should go experience them. Here's some great adventures and a nice little memento for you to be able to go and actually enjoy that content. I really did like it. The RNG was a bummer, but I hope that they take that lesson into the future adventures to try and make it a little bit easier for folks to be able to find or meet the requirements of the actual adventure, considering these are only going to be 2-week engagements. Then we kind of move into Adventure 3, the Shrouded Deep, which is very much an homage to the Hungering Deep, which I remember very fondly. And I think one of the things that we realized with the Hungering Deep versus the Shrouded Deep is that when the Hungering Deep came out, there was forts and the Kraken, and then voyages, and that was it. There wasn't really a whole lot to do. So when you weren't out doing voyages, you were probably hunting down people who were doing voyages or waiting for a fort to pop up so that you could go do that, because that was the best way to earn reputation to be able to quickly hit pirate legend. And that was really great. But the Hungering Deep was a moment where we could all kind of say, like, hey, this is new. We want to go experience it. There's not really tools in place like the Alliance flag to be able to do this easily, to partner up with people. We just kind of have to go based off of our mutual desire to understand what the heck this is, especially when all we had seen were teases of a big shark under the water with like a sloop above it, and seeing the size comparison between the two, knowing that sharks were just normal size at the time, it was very exciting. And having those fond memories and then moving forward, they really tried to up the ante as far as what the new Shrouded Deep was actually going to be. And I think they achieved that. I think they had an amazingly epic adventure. I think that the biggest hang up is that there is so much to do in Sea of Thieves nowadays that it's really hard to draw people's attention from all the other stuff that they could be doing to come focus in on one specific adventure, especially if that specific adventure is a time limited thing that rewards a couple cosmetics and is not a full updates worth of content, very much akin to a Pirate's Life. When a Pirate's Life came out, that was the big content. That was huge. We got 5 new tall tales. It was Pirates of the Caribbean. Everyone wanted to do those. Now that we're looking at Shrouded Deep, you have to realize that if you're going to require adventures that have multiple crew involvement, you're really going to have to be very generous about the amount of time it takes for people to do this, or be very concise with the amount of time. And some of the best ways to do that are checkpoints. one of the easiest ways to do this would be to take a look at the fact that you have 4 different megalodons that you have to kill. Each one of those megalodons could be a checkpoint, and very much like the table that you use to put down a map bundle or a tall tale checkpoint, the table that they used on the killer whale was a perfect opportunity for us to say, hey, I have got a checkpoint for the Shrouded Deep. I would love to be able to put down the little shark effigy that I have that has the soul of a megalodon in there down, so that if you've already done 2 and I've already done 2, but we did them in 2 different weeks, we aren't punished by having to go out and redo those different megalodon souls to be able to complete this, because time is always of the essence, and Sea of Thieves has always taken more time than most people are used to with other games. Usually it just kind of depends. Sea of Thieves is very good at making time disappear. So I think checkpoints would have done a great job. And yes, there is always the opportunity that someone would have a checkpoint for the very last battle, and they would come over, they would drop that checkpoint, they would leave, they would start the actual event, and then they would join back into the event when it's complete, and it may not actually trigger the completion for that person. So they would indefinitely have a check mark for that, or a checkpoint for that adventure, and they could just cycle people in and continuously do that. But that is kind of their prerogative. That's kind of their choice, and I think that choice should have been made available to them, given how difficult it can be, especially towards the end of 2 weeks, to be able to find 5 different people to be able to do this different adventure, to make sure that people are getting that completion, because not everyone has a community, not everyone knows where the community is, and not a lot of people are social enough to be able to feel comfortable reaching out to try and get that community. Sometimes they just like sailing around solo or with a friend or two to be able to go around and do different things. They're usually not very good at PvP, and they may run away, or they may be very good at PvP and just not be very good at being social in general. So I think with Adventure 2, or excuse me, not Adventure 2, Adventure 3, with the Shrouded Deep, I think they killed it. I think they did a fantastic job creating an epic fight that involved the Shrouded Ghost, Flameheart coming in to try and stop you to steal the Vale, Pendragon coming in at the very end to help kind of intercept Flameheart's forces so that you could kill the Shrouded Ghost. The main issues that I had were that it takes 5 people to do. You have to kill 4 megalodons, which takes time if they aren't checkpointed, and that the physics of the entire event were a little weird. So I don't think I ever finished the event where we didn't lose a ship due to the Shrouded Ghost bumping it in some way. At some point, I think every ship that I had sailed with, or every crew that I had been with another crew that at least one of our ships had gotten messed up. So that was kind of the main downsides to it. But genuinely, it was an amazing fight. It felt epic. It felt great to summon it. And it felt great to have the ghost ships pop up and add a new threat to seasoned pirates to be able to deal with that. That was not something that I was used to. And I was very happy to find out that it wasn't just it's another Hungering Deep. It's just another Meg fight. It's like, it's another Meg fight, but this Meg is a lot more aggressive, a lot more dangerous. And you also have the added threat of the ghost ships. Beautiful. Chef's kiss. Please continue to do that with curse sails. Figure out a way to bring in curse sails with ghost ships and they're fighting each other. Anything you want. I'm totally fine bringing in curse sails. The one thing that I would point out is, again, be very considerate about people's time, how long the event is going on, and how difficult it's going to be to do this if they have if you're going to want to do this with multiple crews or not. And I would really kind of advise moving away from multiple crews. I know it was part of the thing with the Hungering Deep, but again, there's so much going on with Sea of Thieves. It's hard to find another crew organically that are willing to do this when everyone is so used to kind of sight unseen sinking a ship. Sink first, loot later. And with that, I think I've kind of rounded out my feelings on this. I I love the adventures. I think they've done a great job building narrative. I think that the cinematics team that they've hired on to do the outside content for Sea of Thieves has done a stellar job. The voice acting is great. The music's amazing. I really love my time when we're actually involved with it. And I can see where things can be changed in the future that will help try to encourage more interaction from the community. I would love to get to the point where we now have events that everyone participates in all the time, just like with the Vale Voyages. I love doing those. I think that I would rather do those more than other voyages, just because I love kind of being tested with my knowledge. Like having the pirate, and actually maybe I'll hold this for when I actually get into the legend of the Vale Voyage. Ahoy there, pirates. This is the ad for this episode, and I did want to let you know, if you wanted to avoid these and just get a regular filler, you can head over to the Patreon. There's a special feed just for patrons that get the ad-free version. If you want to keep listening, though, I can't say I blame you, because this week I want to let you know about Loot Crate and getting 15% off of most crates and crate subscriptions when you use the link and code RobotsRadio in the show notes. Also, you can head over to audiobooks.com, get your first 3 audiobooks for free, and that can include any 2 VIP books, or use the affiliate link for Green Man Gaming. If you're a PC gamer or you'd like to save money on games, it's one of the benefits of being a PC gamer. Head over to Green Man Gaming. You can get codes for Steam, Epic, any of the different stores that they have deals going on. They have deals going on all the time, and if you plan on buying there, please consider using our affiliate link. All of that goes straight to me through the network. Thank you all so much for everything that you do to support this podcast. It means the world to me, and I continue to try and improve the quality and the content for you. With that, pirates, let's get back to the show. All right, so next on the docket, let's dive into the Legend of the Vale Voyage. This is a pirate legend only voyage, although if you are a pirate legend and you find someone who wants it who isn't pirate legend, you can actually give them the voyage by alliancing with their crew, placing the voyage down on their mat table, and having them vote on the voyage. They can then complete it on their own, but I would advise against this purely because if you were going to give them a pirate legend voyage, give them a standard voyage. This was something I talked about in last week's episode with Caleb. I do feel like this voyage is a tough voyage if you don't know the islands, or maybe you're not quite as good with PvP. This might be a good opportunity to get better at that. The Vale Voyages are fantastic as far as design goes when it comes to feeling like they are engaged. As I've mentioned in the past, I'm concerned about how the narrative is going to feel in the future, but at this point, I've said my piece on it, so I won't speak of it again. So the Vale Voyage is comprised of 3 different parts. You've got Haunted Islands, you've got Discovery Islands, and you've got Shipwreck Graveyards before culminating in the final pièce de résistance, which is the actual fight against the Flameheart Fort, which is kind of, I guess, it's more like a haunted fort. If anything, it does come from the Sea of the Damned, but as we kind of talk about the other parts, we'll kind of work our way towards the actual haunted things. But let's kind of talk about the haunted islands. This is something that I kind of ties into the feeling that Belle is actually the warrior who helped the ancients fight against the sirens. When she comes to you, when you put the voyage down, the pirate lord comes onto your ship, which was really cool. It was nice to see him kind of out and about. You know, we'd really only ever seen him in the Shores of Gold, the actual Maiden's Voyage, but down in the tavern is kind of where he spends most of his time. So having him show up on the actual ship that you're on is kind of a great way to say, like, hey, you know what, I'm not just here hanging out, you know, I'm actually here to kind of spend some time and kind of talk to you directly. That's how important this is. I'm willing to leave the Pirate Legend Tavern to come talk to you about this Vale thing. So when you actually get the voyage, you'll actually have this book, and I would caution people to not put down a tall tale, because it will cancel out this voyage and you'll be out 250 gold, and then you'll have to go sail back to get another one. But when you get this, one of the options that you'll have for for the first kind of acquisition of a Vale stone, because with this Vale mask, there's 3 stones, kind of similar to the Shroud Breaker. So one of the 3 potential ones that you can run into as you're kind of working your way towards the final haunted fort is either going to be the Haunted Islands, which involves Belle, the Discovery Islands, which involves Suds, and then the Shipwreck Graveyards, which I actually like. And each one kind of represents their own version of the Order of Souls, the Gold Hoarders, and the Merchant Alliance. The Merchant Alliance feels very much like the Shipwreck Graveyards, where you have the Lost Voyage shipments. Suds is more along the lines of the Gold Hoarders with his kind of versions of X marks the spot maps. And Belle, obviously, you're going to be fighting off Ghost Reapers or Phantoms that are kind of like doing an Order of Souls mission. So while this is the Legend of the Vale Voyage, and it is kind of tied to narrative, it feels very much in line with a new revised version of an Athena Fortune Voyage, where you had Gold Hoarder, X marks the spot maps with riddles. You had Order of Souls, where you had to go out and fight different captains, and then of course with the Merchant Alliance, where you had to go out and pick up cargo crates to be able to. Well, now cargo crates. Originally it was animals. Before, animals were just meat at this point. So it was kind of nice to have these kind of represent the original 3 trade companies in their own version. So starting off with the Haunted Islands, this is one where you're going to be meeting up with Belle. So when you get to a haunted island, you'll have to find her. She'll then give you the Flame of the Damned with the Ferryman's Lantern, and you'll have to run around holding that up to be able to find some of the different ancient statues. Each of these statues is going to be emanating like a weird kind of pulse. And as you kind of go around, you'll find all the different ones. And as you light them, they will then light and they won't pulse anymore. And then another pulse will kind of pop up somewhere else. And you have to kind of run around the island, lighting the different ones until you finally find the one that is the correct one, or you've done enough of them to where the true statue actually pops up. And that will kind of put a little beacon up in the sky, which I like. So you'll run over to the beacon in the sky, you'll light the final statue, and then one of the ancients will actually appear and kind of explain to you like that they have the Vale Stone and they've been keeping it for a while. One of the things that I like about this is that at this point, Flameheart has figured out how to send Reaper Phantoms to you to try and intercept the Vale Stone. So you, as well as a bunch of ancient souls who are now in this kind of mixed world between the Sea of the Damned and the Sea of Thieves, will have to duke it out and try and emerge victorious. Hopefully you do. I can't imagine that you would, because you can't actually kill the ancients. So eventually this fight will end with the Reapers disappearing, and you will be able to claim the Vale Stone from the ancient who is kind of explaining like, this is a powerful relic, you want to be careful with it, and blah blah blah. I didn't really listen, grabbed it, ran, tried to sell it, tried to eat it, none of that worked. So the next bit is actually going to be with Suds, and Suds voyages are probably my favorite. Actually, I think his are the ones that I enjoy doing the most, because it's the biggest test as a pirate legend right now. You'll have 3 different ways to find the Vale Stone. You're either going to get a zoomed in map, which is just kind of a really nice tight image of an island, and you have to kind of figure out what island it is based off of the small amount of information that you're given. The False Ancients paintings, which is I think I referred to it as 2 truths and a lie, where you have to find the ancient painting on the island that is listed and find out which one is incorrect, and then dig in that spot to be able to dig up the ancient chests. And then the last one is just kind of sketched out images of parts of an island, and you have to kind of work out where some of the landmarks are in some of those photos to figure out where the island is. So you really have to kind of know where like things like a kraken skull is, or where certain palm trees are, and just kind of base it off of that before you find out where you have to dig for that. I love those. I think they're great. It's a great test of knowledge for people who've been on the islands for a long time. know them like the back of their hand and are willing to kind of go out there and venture out to see like where they can find this Vale stone. And the last one is actually the shipwreck graveyard, which I think is actually second best. I think Suds is the best. I think the Discovery Islands are my favorite. The shipwreck graveyard is second, and then I think Belle's haunted islands are the third for me. And the shipwreck graveyard is pretty straightforward. You've got a bunch of different ships that are different covered or colored hulls with each unique name that is kind of a play on the actual color. Like the Queen's Envy is a green ship. The Grim Fortune, which is the ship that you actually have to find the key to the captain's cabin for, is a white ship. And just, I love the design here because I thought it was really smart of them to kind of have different names tied to different colors and have each one be a represented ship in there. So if you go around to the different shipwrecks, and thank you to having them put water in, or not water, what are they called? Air bubbles. Yeah. Trapped air bubbles in those shipwrecks. So you can kind of spend some time in there and actually, explore, take a look at the actual things going on in the ships themselves and just have some freedom to explore. That was something I really appreciated. I really loved being able to kind of venture around and poke at all the different things, whether it be a bunch of quills or a pillow or a hat on an actual, I can't think of what they're called, little statue. What are those dress dolls called? Mannequins. So it was nice to be able to see those, the music box that you have to lift up to find a little secret, or the painting that you have to move this side to try and find out where this key is. It's just it's such an interesting thing to do. It oddly reminds me of, I guess, the opening scene of The Little Mermaid, the Disney film, where, I'm blanking on, Ariel is kind of venturing around in a shipwreck and she finds the fork and she finds, no, was it just the fork? I think she might've just found the fork, and she's just kind of like scavenging through these shipwrecks, as they're kind of evading sharks. And that's kind of what the shipwreck graveyard reminds me of is there's a bunch of shipwrecks. You're just trying to find this one key because you're trying to find out where this Vale stone is. And once you find it, that's kind of done. There's a book in there that gives you a little bit of hint if you're having trouble. So if you find a book that you can interact with, it'll kind of tell you the little bit of a breadcrumb trail on which shipwreck you need to get to go to find the actual captain's cabin key. And then once you find the key, then you go over to the white ship, which is typically the one that is belly up on the surface of the water, and you can then open up the captain's cabin, find the actual Vale stone, and proceed to the next one. With this voyage, you're going to have 2 of the 3 that I mentioned as the part 1 and part 2 of this voyage, and they go pretty quick. That's what I love about this. I really love that this whole voyage really only takes about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on where you have to go or where you start it from, to complete. And it's very rewarding. If you put up an Athena emissary flag, you're guaranteed to get level 5 emissary by the end of the voyage. But being able to have these 3 different kind of modular experiences that can be crafted and split up into their own little thing, but then swapped out, so you're not doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. It really feels like there's a lot of life to these voyages as far as not getting bored with the same old thing, because you're always going to find the key in a different area. You're always going to get different islands for Suds Discovery Islands, which sounds like it sounds like an adventure tour. Head over to the Suds Adventure Discovery Islands to find your next treasure, pirate. And then you've got the Haunted Isles with Belle, which is just a goth rave scene at that point. So I'm glad that they're varying these up, because otherwise they would get very boring, very much like how the original voyages were for Athena's Fortune. That was one of the troubles with it. Sure, you got different voyages, but you knew you were always going to get a couple X marks the spots, a couple riddles, a couple Order of Souls, and then a couple cargo jumps to be able to finish those up before finally getting the final voyage, which was going to tell you where there was going to be an Athena chest at the end of it. And that voyage took like 2.5, 3 hours. If you didn't speed run it, if you did a speed run, which for those that weren't familiar, you can actually speed run the Athena voyages. I don't know why you would want to nowadays, but you can. It's much better just to go do a Thieves Haven run. But if you wanted to speed run them, what you would do is you would get on a ship with at least a galleon crew. You would have them mark out where the maps are. You would sail over to the islands. One person would go over to one island, and they would work on either Order Souls or the Gold Hoarder voyages. And you would kind of hop from island to island, making your next stop. And you would have one person kind of stay with the ship until they got to the fourth island, in which case, if the first person didn't finish up what they were working on, and keep in mind, you're not keeping any of the treasure from any of the other islands. You're just digging up the chest. You're pinging it so it disappears off of the map. You're not even digging it up. You're not even digging it up all the way. You're just knocking it up high enough so that it removes the X off of the map. When that's done, that's when you get back to the ship, because you're on to the next one. You've got 8 different voyages. It's insane. But you can speed run those until you finally get to the last voyage, at which point you finally get a thing. If you're going to do those, honestly, it's safer to do it in the original 3 Cs, but the payout's going to be better if you do it out in the roar, just because the skeletons are easier to deal with. If you're on an island that has I almost said geysers. I'm not going to say geysers. I'm going to say geysers because I'm an American. If you use the geysers to kill the skeletons, it makes it so much simpler. And now that they drop ammo pouches, it's probably even quicker to even do that. But again, I'm getting way off a track here. So once you kind of move through the first 2 modules and you get the first 2 Vale stones for this, each time you get a Vale stone, you want to place it into the actual mask, and that will progress you into the next section. The Pirate Lord will come out. He'll kind of say a little bit of words telling you you've done a great job and that you're so close to finishing off reclaiming the Vale stones. There's just a little bit further that you have to go ahead, and kind of encouraging you to get on with the rest of the voyage. The last voyage is the haunted the haunted forts, which I really, really, really dig these things. They do a great job of kind of having a little bit of the best of everything when it comes to what we've had with Flameheart, what we've had with Sea Forts, how we've kind of gone through the world and just, seen different things nowadays. It's kind of like dealing with all the cool things that come from the game after years and years worth of design. But we get a couple pages in the book that actually come from the Reapers themselves, which I gotta say, this whole voyage is basically flooded with the written pages from Reapers who, for some reason, have amazing penmanship. Clearly none of them are doctors, but they've always been really, really bad about throwing their pages away instead of shredding them. Again, if you're going to be out in the seas, make sure you shred all your stuff, because that's sensitive information. You can't just throw it onto the water and expect someone not to pick it up and start taking advantage of that kind of stuff, especially with your map bundles. Be very cautious about that. But they managed to actually get one of the Vale stones. And Flameheart Jr. talks about how his father has called forth these forts from the Sea of the Damned to protect the stone, to keep it safe, and that the fort is actually kind of the key. And then it'll give you the location of that place, which is, again, the typical kind of hubris from the villains that you find in Saturday cartoons or Saturday morning cartoons. But you want to head over there. There's a giant, beautiful tornado that is above one of these fortresses. And as you're sailing over there, you'll have to deal with 3 emplacements, which I hate the name of, but I recognize you can't keep calling everything forts. You really got to come up with some different names. So with these 3 and 4 or emplacements, not encampments. I always want to call them encampments, but they're emplacements. You have to take them down. And this is where they kind of took what I loved about the 5th Tall Tale for A Pirate's Life, where you could destroy the giant mermaid statues that didn't do anything in that one, and just kind of watch them crumble. The tech has been really beautiful to watch these emplacements, and the fortress itself actually take damage. The fortress itself is amazing. The amount of work that they put into there that people probably won't ever get to actually see is fantastic. fantastic. And I love that you can actually go up there and kill the actual phantoms on the cannons. So if you had one person that was running around and you were having trouble actually getting some shots in without taking too much damage, you could shoot someone up on there and they could hop around and kill all the different phantoms to be able to help kind of deter some of the cannon fire from the actual fortress. Oh, I'm running fast here. But when you actually get to kill the 3 different encampments, and I say kill in a weird way, but whenever you destroy the 3, and I said encampments again, emplacements, when you kill the 3 emplacements, you can get the storage crates that are on top. I usually recommend, if you're running just a duo crew and you're trying to get through this quickly, I usually recommend emptying one of the storage crates into the other one and then just grabbing the full one and going. And then maybe like tossing up, I don't know, maybe someone else is just trying to sail through and get them probably quickly, but I usually recommend just grabbing the one, because the gold from the other one it's not going to be make or break. You could probably leave off with that, but if you're trying to get every piece of gold, then of course you want to take both, because you can sell those. And then as you kind of work your way towards the final fortress, that's when you'll have to take out all the different bits of the actual fortress. And boy, this was fun. It was amazing to watch. It was amazing to kind of take down each one. I think the emplacements take 5 cannonball shots. I think each part of the actual fortress is 3 or 4. I don't quote me on that though, but I think it's like 3 or 4 shots to break down a certain piece. And I think there's 2, 3, 4, 5, I want to say 6 different parts of the fort. I could be wrong on that. I don't know that I've actually counted, but it feels like 6, because there's at least 4 turrets and a couple buildings. But basically you have to take down each different building on the actual fort. And then once that's done, you can then kind of pull up, and that's where all the treasure is going to be. You've got an Athena chest. You've got a whole bunch of new Athena loot, which is all really cool. I really love just how much actual treasure you get out of this. And it's all Athena stuff. It's amazing. You finally get the last Veil Stone and you put it into the mask, and the Pirate Lord appears on your ship to let you know that we've done a great job restoring the power of the Veil of Ancients, and he's going to hold on to it until a certain time where it becomes necessary to use, which, thanks to the latest Sea of Thieves podcast, we found out is something that they were going to be planning on working for the rest of the year. So we're going to continue having adventures. I think they mentioned in the podcast that Steve Dillon is actually working on designing adventure number 6. Adventure number 4 should be coming in the next few weeks. We should be still getting a mystery, which I'm really not sure when that's coming, but boy, howdy, that'd be nice if we could figure out where that's actually going to land and how that's going to be perceived. I think they might be kind of keeping that close to the chest for now. And I really loved that they talked about some of the things that tied into the Legend of the Vale Voyage, namely the Devil's Roar. So Mike Chapman kind of addressed one of the issues that came in thanks to Joe for kind of talking about what was kind of happening with the Devil's Roar. Because as of right now, there's not been a lot of focus on the Devil's Roar. It's always been there, and there really hasn't been too much advancement in what goes on over in the Roar. We had vaults that were available there. We had some kind of rearranging of some stuff, some kind of changes with where we focus some things. There's obviously the changes going on at the outpost is kind of what I'm referencing here. And it makes me think that they are still kind of keeping things in mind. And originally, I was thinking that with some of the teases that we got, kind of the obvious place towards what I think is going to be a captaincy update, they are going to be offering some new things to do on the outposts. And when I think of this, I was thinking it would be really cool if they gave us the opportunity to choose where we spawned in for the actual outposts. And I thought that would be kind of something, like if you'd earned it, then you'd be able to go and spawn at, say, like the Morrow's Peak outpost. This, unfortunately, this episode of the Sea of Thieves podcast broke that dream for me. They said that was not something that they wanted to do, and that was something that was very much in kind of like spawning wherever you were. They don't plan on doing that. They don't plan on having fast travel. It's kind of the nature of being able to kind of show up and do whatever you want based on where you spawn in with the Sea of Thieves. And the thing that I thought was really interesting about this is that they've talked about about how they are going to be kind of using some things that we have in the past to travel to different areas. And I think that they've kind of teased out that they want to use the giant portals that we have in the middle of the ocean that really aren't useful for anything outside of the Pirate's Life Tall Tales as ways to kind of go from place to place. Now, I realize people still use these for server hopping and stuff like that, but that's not the original intent. So when they go back and they look at what they want to do with those, I'm hoping that what will happen is that they will give us the ability to affix a certain type of artifact, whether it be the Veil of Ancients or the Shroud Breaker, and then use that to travel through a portal that will take us to a different area. And maybe that's why they're kind of building up these docks over at the different outposts. I can't imagine that it's just giving us a way to name our ship. It's got to be something a little more involved than that, because it seems like such an easy thing. But again, we still have the nameplate glitches on the galleons right now for the cosmetics, and the LOD issues that we've seen as far as being able to see nameplates on smaller ships. It's something we know is being worked on. We just don't know if it's coming soon or later, but obviously with these things kind of leaking into the main game, it feels like it's sooner rather than later in this case. But to kind of focus in on the Devil's Roar, they talked about how they hadn't forgotten about this, and that they didn't want people to think that just because this wasn't something that was being actively developed on, that they feel any kind of regret for making it. Because I really do think that it's one of the cooler areas that we've had in Sea of Thieves. They want it to be more of a challenging area, a perilous area, as Mike talked about it. And I kind of agree with that. I think it's a great way to kind of make sure that, hey, you know, if you want loot that is more valuable, then that is a good place to go out for that. The rub comes in is how quickly you can get loot in the original 3 Cs that may not be worth as much as like a standard voyage if you were to compare one voyage to another. But the amount of treasure that you can get, the amount of supplies that you can get, really do kind of set you up for success in the original 3 Cs. And I think that's something that needs to be kind of taken into consideration if they plan to do any more advancements in the Roar. I would love to be able to have ways to additionally create more supplies. Thankfully, we have some of that with the storage crates that you can now purchase, as well as the cannonball and wood planks. That makes a huge difference when venturing out into the Roar. You're limited by just the one that you can buy, though. And if you bought one recently, I don't know if you can buy one more frequent or in a, I don't know how long the actual reset is for that. I think it's at least a day and a half or something, but you can only buy one from what I understand, or from what I've tried. I've never ran into an instance where I've been able to buy more than one. So if I'm getting that wrong, then forgive me on that one. But they did talk about how they don't have any plans to really do anything with the Devil's Roar right now. And it kind of feels like a big bummer, because I really do like the Roar as much as I love and hate it. I think it's amazing. I think it's a great area, and I think there's a lot of potential for cool stuff out there. So when I was working on one of the Legend of the Vale Voyages, and it took me out into the Roar, and I actually had to identify islands out there based off of their landmarks, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought that was a great utilization of, how much time have you spent out in the Roar? How pirate legend are you? Do you know these islands? And that was something that I felt really proud of. I was very, very happy with the fact that, I may not be the best PvPer, I may not be the best PvEer, but I definitely know my way around islands. And I'm very proud of that, because I've spent a long time memorizing stuff, trying to remember where things are, and trying to remember like the best way to get to places, and how to find like X marks the spots, or memorizing all the different little lore tidbits in the game and stuff. It's something that I've tried really hard to do and try and maintain. It's really hard to maintain that even now. So it's a bummer that they're not looking to do anything with it. It's a bummer that they're not going to be planning on letting us pick what outpost we want to spawn in with any kind of new update that kind of focuses on captaincy. But they are looking for opportunities to make that more of an attractive area with greater challenges. And of course, with those challenges come greater rewards. I would just like to kind of state again, if you're going to do greater challenges, the rewards have to be more than what you can earn quicker for lesser loot, or for lesser value out in the original 3 Cs, because it is so quick to earn loot out there than it is over in the Roar, especially given that a lot of the time that you are in the Roar, you're subject to waiting for volcanoes, and that really does kind of cut down on what pirates are calling like their GPM, their gold per minute. So I love that they're not done with the Devil's Roar, that they're not going to just shore it up and move the shroud in and reclaim some of those resources and do away with it altogether, because I do really love that area. And it was an absolutely amazing a place to go visit when it first came out in that first year. So I think the last little bit of news that I wanted to kind of make sure that you were aware of as we go into next week is, of course, the Sea of Thieves Community Day that is happening on May 14th. That is going on between May 14th and May 15th. May 15th, it'll be ending on 10 a.m. UTC, 2 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can log in to make sure that you get your free Community Day flag. It is a yellow version of the Community Day flag. I imagine they'll have a t-shirt as well. They plan on having sales on the Emporium, as well as sales going on in the actual Rare shop as well too. So if you've been looking to pick up any kind of merchandise and you missed out on the first Community Day, here's another opportunity for you to do that. They're also planning on doing a double gold and double glory day for this as well too. So this isn't going to be the same kind of gains that we got with the first Community Day. That one broke the servers. So we'll try to avoid breaking the servers and just go with a standard double gold and double glory, or double gold and double rep for the entire event. The boosting that we can do with the hashtag Sea of Thieves Community Day, that is actually going to go towards renown. So and bear in mind, we're getting close to the end of the season here. So if you still have to get to level 100 in your renown, this Sea of Thieves Community Day on the 14th is going to be a great way to work on stuff. And again, you don't have to do anything particular, but I would love to recommend you go through some of the trials, take a look at some of the ones that are available, and start working on those once the community has worked up the emissary grade multiplier to the max, which I believe is going to be 5 times the gains for renown. So with this, it'll be nice to kind of have them do something that will get people done with their season pass faster, as opposed to trying to force people into the largest loot hauls they can possibly get, because I think that is where we run into the issues with what's going on with the actual server stability. We don't want any more strawberry beards. It was a great way to kind of have some fun in the community, to kind of be like, hey, you know what, we're all experiencing this issue. We're all running into the problems with having to deal with not being able to get into the actual the game to be able to earn all this gold. I think if we just do a regular double gold, double reputation, then at least that way we're not stressing any more than we have in the past, and it should be something that is a lot more manageable. One of the other things that's going on with this is actually Twitch drops, and that's something that's actually going on of the day as well too. So you should be able to get the I believe it's the Gilded Phoenix banjo that is coming out. You just have to watch one of the Sea of Thieves partners, I believe, for 20 minutes, typically the normal requirements for those kind of drops. You're also going to be able to get the free flapping emote, which kind of is like the chicken wings. You're doing the chicken emote. So make sure you log in to get that, as well as the free flag. You're also going to be able to pick up the Community Day t-shirt. This is the one that commemorates this. I picked up the 2 of the first one, and I like them in blue. I don't like yellow. It's not my color. So I'll probably hold off on that. Also, keep an eye out for Community Day events. The Hat of Unfeasibly Glorious Fame, something that I got last Community Day, is something that's up for anyone that is doing stuff is exceptional on the social channels. So if you know someone that's a really great pirate, or just a good person in general, they've done a lot to try and do stuff for the community, make sure to shout them out over on Twitter, over on Facebook, on Instagram. Make sure you use the hashtag BeMorePirate and hashtag Sea of Thieves Community Day to get their attention, so that they can get that Hat of Unfeasibly Glorious Fame. Well, I think that's it for this episode of Keelhauled Podcast. I think I've covered just about everything. And just, again, for reasons that make me feel better. I feel like I was going a little too harsh lately on the voyages and the servers and stuff. I've really had a good time on the season. I think that they've done a great job with the narrative. I can't wait to see how things are going in the future, because there's a lot of lessons learned that are getting applied to future content. I think, of course, the biggest thing that we all want is just to make sure that we are able to play the game in a way that is sustainable, that is or not sustainable, but stable and sustainable, and just to make sure that we are having a good time and that we aren't interrupted by things that are outside of our control, like the servers and stuff. So I'm excited to see where things are going. There's still a couple stories that I want to have kind of play out differently, but this definitely feels like the year of Flameheart, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this kind of rounds out, because if they're able to close up the Flameheart story, then that opens it up to years worth of content that is not constantly looming over our head of like, oh, well, what about Flameheart? What about Flameheart? Now we can kind of focus on like, who's the captain? Who's going to be coming after the captain? All this other, all these other different groups that could be coming into existence that we don't even know about yet, that I'm excited to see. So curious what your thoughts are on these. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. If you do, feel free to let us know, or let me know in the Discord server. You can always head over to the show notes and you'll see links to the Discord server. You can join up and meet other crew members there. And you can also join into the Sherpa program, where they're trying to help pirates learn how to do stuff, and make sure that they're getting into do these adventures, to make sure that people have crews, that they're getting to Pirate Legend and stuff. We've recently had some Pirate Legends as a result of the community, and it's been great. Also, you can head over to the show notes to see where you can get in contact with me or for the podcast too. The email for the show is captainlogan@gmail.com. If you want to get a hold of me on Twitter, it's @CAPT_LOGON or Capt Logan. You can also reach out to me. Where else can you reach out to me? That's pretty much it. I mean, everything's in the show notes. So I've also got the Xbox Wrap Up podcast, which I'm still kind of working out how to get that in a reasonable amount of time, but I'm covering all of the game news and giving a little bit of opinion on there. But I want to make sure that if folks are not able to keep up with all of the things that are going on in the gaming industry, and you're a fan of the gaming industry beyond just Sea of Thieves, the Xbox Wrap Up podcast is a show that I put out on Fridays that cover all the things that we heard about going on in that week, so that way you're kind of kept up to date with that. I think this latest episode, I forgot to balance the outro music, so there's like a good chunk of the ending that I completely messed up on. But that was one of those things where, you know, editing at 2 a.m, probably not the best thing for me to do. Should probably put that off in the afternoon and try and get back to that at a reasonable time when I actually have some common sense in my brain to make sure that I'm checking all of my files and stuff. So, but thank you to everyone who's listening to that and supporting there. That's over, I think it's over on Anchor.fm. Just search the Xbox Wrap Up. Should be available in most of your podcatchers as well too. And I think that's it. So Pirates, thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.
Do you love the Witcher series and are interested in learning more about the world and the history and the monsters and the characters of the Witcher? Well, this is Robots from shows like the Fallout Lorecast and the Elder Scrolls Lorecast and the Mass Effect Lorecast. And me and my buddy Toasty are now doing the Witcher Lorecast. It's available on whatever podcatcher you're listening to this on right now. And we also record it live on Monday nights on twitch.tv/robotsradio at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. So you're welcome to join us there. Again, it's the Witcher Lorecast, available everywhere. Go check it out right now.
Hey Guardians, we are the Destiny Show Podcast, a weekly podcast about all things Destiny 2. We invite amazing guests from the Destiny community to share their stories and discuss the latest topics from the world of Destiny. Check us out on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, or live on Twitch every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will see you Starside.